Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly O'Horo, and this is Adaptable, Behavior Explained. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Adaptable Show. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that so many of us struggle with, and that's the art of saying no. It's a simple word, but it holds so much power to transform your life. And we're going to explore how to master this skill and really understand what's in the way. So when we say no, we can empower ourselves to look after what's best for ourselves. We can set clear boundaries and expectations for others. And we are going to learn how not to feel guilty when we do so. So I hope that you enjoy this show. Make sure to like and subscribe and share it with someone that might be struggling with this concept, because their lives will be so much more free when they learn how to master this topic. So we're going to dig into a few concepts, the first of which is self-awareness. Many people don't have much of that, but it's a fundamental aspect of our personal growth and ultimately our emotional intelligence. It involves a conscious understanding of our emotions, our strengths, our weaknesses, how we think, and what we value. And so if we're self-aware, it allows us to make more informed choices, improve our relationships, and ultimately achieve greater self-acceptance. When we love ourselves, we feel more empowered to advocate for ourselves in ways that we need to, and that includes saying no. So it's the cornerstone of our introspection. It's the first step towards meaningful change and self-improvement. And so our first step is really about knowing who you are, what matters to you, and how you want to implement those things and show about those things in your life. So, for example, if you value family time, saying no to late work hours is in line with your priorities. This is appropriate. And so if you can imagine maybe being invited to a weekend event, but you've promised your family a movie night, it's okay to say, I appreciate the invite, but I have plans with my family. So understanding your own experience and what is important to you really matters. And then you can advocate and assert for such things. The next topic we're going to talk about is assertiveness. Becoming assertive is important because it empowers people to express their thoughts, your needs, and your boundaries clearly, but most importantly, respectfully. I talk about communication in another episode, but one of my favorite sayings is clear is kind, and being able to be assertive and say what we mean and mean what we say without saying it mean is really important. Being assertive fosters confidence in ourselves, and it helps us to earn respect from other people, which leads to healthier relationships and more effective communication. It also enables us to handle conflicts more constructively and to advocate for ourselves in personal and professional settings, no matter what those may be. It contributes to overall well-being and success when we can show up for ourselves in an assertive way. So it's not just what we say to be assertive, it's how we say it. We want to speak with confidence. We want to maintain eye contact. And so an example of how we might use assertive communication and for you to emulate might be, let's say a colleague asks you for help on a project and you're already swamped with your own tasks and your own to-do lists. You can say that you're currently at capacity with your own tasks or assignments, but I'm happy to revisit with you next week, or even offer a suggestion of someone who might be free to give them some help. The next thing we want to talk about is boundaries, because saying no really is kind of a paramount to a boundary that might need to be set for you. They're essential for maintaining a healthy sense of self. Boundaries are the guidelines for how we want to be treated by others and how we treat ourselves. So we have to establish clear boundaries to help to protect our emotional well-being, as well as encourage mutual respect. We can't have fruitful, healthy relationships without boundaries. It's impossible. And so boundaries allow us to communicate our needs and our limits effectively. And they really are the pathway to connection and intimacy. We have to teach people how to be in relationship with us. Otherwise, they're going to get it wrong. And it's really our responsibility to make sure we're clear about what we need in our relationships and express those clearly. Boundaries are crucial for creating balance in our lives and preventing our burnout, and it ensures that we can thrive both in our personal and in our professional lives. This importance of setting boundaries, like I said, it's imperative to healthy communication and healthy relationships. So for an example, let's say a friend consistently calls you during a time where you've set aside to rest or relax, it's okay to say to somebody that you're not available after a certain time, but you're free to chat before then. Another example, for parents is I used to let my kids know, if you need anything from me related to the parenting role, I need to know by 8. Otherwise, we're going to have to table it tomorrow because I need to start unwinding. And so if they forgot their poster board for a project, sometimes they might have to have a consequence due to their late reaction to a poor follow through on a boundary. And I think that those are important lessons to teach people, that your time is important and it's valuable. But learning how to say no can be tricky, because for some people it comes with a sense of guilt, and guilt as a constructive emotion tells us when our actions don't align with our values. It encourages us to rectify our behavior, but it differs from shame because that attacks our self-identity and who I am is bad as opposed to what I did was bad. One of my mentors, Brene Brown, underlies that managing our guilt is essential, but especially when we're learning to say no, because it helps us to uphold our values without compromising our own integrity or our self-worth. So we have to manage our guilt by asserting our decisions with confidence, developing resilience to it, and practicing self-compassion, which can lead to a fulfilling life. And it resonates with our true selves when we're in line with that. So guilt can creep in after saying no. And remember that we're not responsible for the reactions of other people, even when we have to say no, when we might want to say yes, or when others might want us to say yes. So, for example, if you decline an invitation and you feel guilty about it, you have to remind yourself that you made the best choice for you and your own well-being. And I recommend starting with small things while you're practicing and learning management of guilt, sort of lower stakes things, in order to make the process of practicing a little bit easier. The next thing you want to keep in mind when you think about the management of, or learning how to say no better, more practiced, is empathy. So empathy is described as our ability to connect with others by understanding and sharing in their feelings. It's about being present and attuned to people's experiences without judgment. It's not about fixing problems, but about our courage to meet others in their vulnerability without losing ourselves. And it's a powerful tool for building trust and fostering connection and healing relationships. So we really want to make sure we can help understand others without compromising our own needs. So for example, when we turn down a request, we want to show compassion and say, I understand that this is important to you and I wish that I can help, but I can't commit to that right now. My plate's just simply too full. So we want to make sure that we are empathetic with our no, but that we don't take on the disappointment or the reaction of others. Which leads us to the next topic, which is about rejection and rejection sensitivity. So some of us are more sensitive to rejection, especially if we have not felt safe in our environment, or we were raised with highly critical parents, or we didn't feel like we could gain the approval or acceptance of our peers. We might have more sensitivity to rejection. And so there's a heightened vulnerability to that perception and the impact of rejection. And that kind of involves intense emotional experiences, to whether it's real or perceived rejection, which leads to a cycle of fear and avoidance of that feeling. So we don't want to feel rejected, so we might be more reluctant to say no. So that when we say no to others and they're disappointed, we might attempt to avoid that feeling by turning our no around and shape-shifting and saying, oh, never mind, I'll do it, because we are having a hard time tolerating their disappointment. And so we have to look at our fear of rejection, because that can be paralyzing. We want to start small, practice saying no, again, in low-stakes situations. So for example, if you're at a restaurant and you're served the wrong item, it's okay to say politely, this isn't what I ordered. Could you please go ahead and correct that and bring me, the item that I asked for? And so this doesn't cost the server anything to get your order correct. And it gives you a chance to not be fearful of perhaps they're overwhelmed and their eyes roll because they have to go now do something else. We need to make sure we're not taking on the perception of rejection by the way they showed up if we ask for something to be rectified. Another thing that's important to recognize in our own responsibility about learning to say no is time management. So time management it's a critical skill. Most of us are really ever evolving in this area, but it involves prioritizing your tasks and allocating time to effectively achieve your goals. So when you're learning to say no, it's important because it helps us to maintain control over our schedule and prevents us from overcommitting ourselves, which ultimately creates a lot of stress. So by saying no to less important things, you can focus on what truly matters, which ensures your time is spent efficiently and your productivity and work-life balance are optimized. So it's important to really look at your time and how do you value spending that time. It's precious, and it's so important to make sure that you say no so you can free up time for what truly matters to you. So a way that an example for this is that if you're asked, for example, to volunteer on a busy weekend, it's okay to say something like, I don't have time or bandwidth this weekend, but please, keep me in mind for a future opportunity because I do value volunteering, but this weekend's just not going to work for me. And just like any new skill, practice is essential. And if you've had a hard time saying no, perhaps you were more of a people pleaser growing up, or that was one of your adaptations that you learned in your family system, then this is going to take more practice to learn how to say no and improve that skill. And every time we practice something, it stimulates our brains, it promotes neural growth and improves our cognitive function. So we have to practice. But ultimately, it leads us. It leads to personal development. It boosts our self-esteem, and it can open us up to new opportunities. So we want to have consistent practice because it enhances our proficiency, our confidence, and it allows us to expand our capabilities to adapt to various challenges in life. And so when thinking about the no, practice makes perfect. We want to start with situations where, it's not so overwhelming for us. And like I said before, when the stakes are lower, and then build up from there. So we want to practice, for example, if we had a salesperson who was pushing a product or something on us, we can say, no, thank you, I'm not interested. You might need to repeat that several times. No, thank you, I'm not interested. That's called the broken record technique, where we just basically repeat the same thing. You don't have to defend or justify your no. You can just express the no. But keeping it simple and keeping it clear is really important, which brings me to my next topic to bring up about saying no, which is clarity. We have to be clear. Clear is kind. It's crucial when we're learning to say no because it ensures that our refusal is understood and it's respected. And so when we waffle or we go back and forth on our no, it teaches others that our word is not really trustworthy, and they will capitalize on our flexibility or our lack of boundaries around the no. And so it helps us to set the firm boundaries where we communicate effectively when we're clear. We want to be direct because it minimizes misunderstandings, and it helps us to maintain healthier relationships when we're clear and when we're direct. And it also helps you stay clear and committed to the values that you want to uphold. So being direct is so important. You don't owe anyone a lengthy explanation about anything. So for example, if someone asks you for a favor and you can't fulfill it, or simply you don't want to, you can say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to do that. You don't have to offer anything else in the way of excuses or anything else. And we want to maintain consistency when it comes to how we show up for ourselves related to the no. And that does take practice. And people will definitely see when you're not consistent. And that will bite you in the butt if you aren't clear about the fact that you weren't consistent. So it's really necessary because it reinforces your boundaries and it communicates your priorities, and it's reliable. It can be trusted. It builds trust in others because they come to understand and they respect your limits. Whereas just like in anything, consistent behavior strengthens our own resolve. It makes it easier for us to manage our time, our commitments effectively. It helps us to prevent feelings of guilt or self-doubt that oftentimes arise when we're inconsistent with our decision making. Consistency is key. So you want to stick to your decision, even if you're pressured, because if you're repeatedly asked to reconsider, you just can calmly say, as I mentioned before, my decision's final. This is the direction that I need to take this. So I know that it's hard. I know that it's tricky. There's a lot to consider, but it is freedom. Learning to say no really will impact your life so positively. People will treat you with more respect, show up in more consistent ways, and you can trust yourself that you're protecting the values that you want to uphold when you're consistent with your no's and you're clear about what you want. It's a powerful tool. It's necessary for self-care, and it isn't selfish. It's about being self-full. So it's important to remember that this is going to take you some time and some practice to improve. I hope that you find this helpful. I think that this is a skill that most people really need to learn. And I think that if you practice, you will get better at it and your relationships will improve as a result. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate your time. I hope that you found this helpful. Please share this with someone else who might be struggling with this concept. And don't forget to subscribe so that you can check into future shows. Until we meet again, don't forget to lead with love. It'll never steer you wrong.